I feel like I should start the podcast off just by like doing the Kandar, like do the chant, but I'm afraid something may happen considering the like a few times ago that we recorded, like there was some shit going on the other side of my door that we still don't know what it was.
Yeah, man, you might want to put a sturdier door there just in case.
Hey, man, it is what it is. I can't help it. If it's going to come through, it's coming through. There's another door to get in this room anyway, so it's not like I can fix it.
That's true.
Welcome to the Two Dads Review podcast. My name's Clay, the guy on the other side of the mic.
I'm Corey.
Corey is here. This is the first episode of our 5-part series. 5 parts because that's how many weeks it is until American Horror Story Apocalypse starts. So 5-part series. We're calling it Best of Horror by Corey. So that's air quotes for by Corey because
it also sounds better when you put like a best of like and you actually have like parts to it because there's like
right.
That makes it sound like it was well thought out instead of you each day going, hey, what's the next one?
Do you have a next one? Right. Up until yesterday, do you have a next one? So yeah, we'll get to that at the end of the episode. We'll see what we're doing next. But for this week, you have chosen Evil Dead 2, and we'll get into that very, very shortly. Before we start digging into it, you could always go over to twodadsreview.com. You can find all the information about our podcast there. You can find links to where to listen to us, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, just the whole bunch of them. You can also check out Two Dads Review over on YouTube channel. Podcast goes up over there as well. So anywhere you can find us, please subscribe. Please click notifications because you'll never get us on the same day twice. And please share it. We love when you guys share our podcast out. We love getting new listeners. Anybody who's new, this is your first episode, welcome. We are glad that you found us. We hope that you enjoy what you are about to hear for the next, I don't know, hour, 2 hours. It can vary. If you are new to the show, we have done numerous new movie release reviews over the past 6 months, along with series reviews of Star Trek Discovery, the last season of Game of Thrones. What else do we do?
American Horror Story.
American Horror Story Cult last year. That was one that we did. So yeah, if you want to find any of that stuff, it's all available up on the website. Check us out. And yeah, let's talk some Evil Dead, man. Let's talk some Evil Dead 2 because you picked 2, which. So, okay, before we start, let's talk about our history with the movies, okay?
All right.
So, you picked it, you start. What is your history with with Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, the Evil Dead series?
Like, in all honesty, like, I don't remember which one I watched first. It wasn't, I know I caught most of them probably on, like, TBS or TNT when they came through around the Thanksgiving horror season like it always seemed to.
Right.
But I would say I probably watched Evil Dead first if I really had to like pick one that I fluently like remember watching. It was probably one of the first movies that I researched where I was like, oh, hey, I wonder if there's like others or, oh my God, this is part of the Evil Dead series. Like I didn't, it took me forever to put that together. So I sat down and I watched them. And for whatever reason, man, like Evil Dead 2 is the movie to me where it like all clicked for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I would agree with that.
Like number one was, hey, we're trying to make a horror movie and it just kind of comes off as like perfectly campy at the same time. Like, you know what they're trying to do. And they're like, hey, you know what? Somehow you guys are oddly giving me comedy with gruesome horror, like with people that actually look terrifying, not just some slapstick. Hey, we're going to call it a horror comedy because a guy was running and then he landed on a pitchfork. Right. You know?
I wouldn't even call the first one. If the first one had comedic elements, it was not as intentional as any of the following ones.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so it was Evil Dead came along and they hit this weird, like accidental, perfect combination with Bruce and the way he acts in the films. And it was in the second one, they're like, you know what, dude, like this guy is hilarious. He's a brute. And he's also like a physical comedy genius.
Right.
And in that film, it was like they understood it. They're like, you know what, man, like let's make it scary. Like when we see grandmother in the cellar, like I'm not, going, oh, that's that's fake looking or whatever. I'm going, shit, dude. Like, I wouldn't want to run in across that. Like that scene of banging in the cellars, it's memorable, you know, and they just kind of seemed to get it all clicking together. And then Army of Darkness came along, and that was almost like, hey, we know what we got. Here's what we do when we finally have a budget. Like let's
crank it up.
Yeah, like we finally have a legit budget. Like we can show you what we can do with a nice little bow on it. But for me, Evil Dead 2 just took the best elements right before, you know, like your favorite artist got a great producer and their sound is now like perfectly clean. You're like, dude, it's almost better when you guys sounded a little shittier. I don't know how to tell you otherwise. And like Evil Dead 2 to me is just that perfect storm of it all. And
right.
It's funny. It's got good scary moments. And like I think when you look back at the series, it's probably the one where you're like, hey, this nifty little baby's being born, right? You know, like they just knew what they had.
Right. And solidified itself. All of them, especially the first Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, solidified themselves as a horror staple from then on. Depending on which way you're going with horror, just like you can have different types of music that are like rock or metal can have 18 million different aspects or different, you know, offshoots of it. I would say that none of the three movies are all one thing. They're horror to a certain extent, but then you're right. Like 2 has that. 1 is horror with a minor bit like exploitation, minor bit like comedy. Just, I mean, there's not a lot of like jokey parts in that first one. No, and even with like Bruce's style of acting in it, you know, when he's playing Ash, like even in the first one, he's toned down big time. Yeah,
it was just like you could see that they stumbled into a really good idea and realized they had the parts with it, you know. Yes. And like and number 2 to me was just watching all those parts come together. And that's probably why it's like my favorite out of all of them, even though some of the special effects are almost borderline too cheesy, you know, but it's still my favorite out of all of them.
True. And it's the first one you went to last week when I said, all right, we're doing horror. What do we go to? What's the first one? This one you didn't even hesitate on. And you pulled up a stack of 8 different Evil Dead 2s that you literally had of different versions. You showed me. In fact, I went over to your house this week to watch Evil Dead 2 just for fun. And you had the HD DVD version, which you can't even play anymore. But you're like, I'm not getting rid of this motherfucker.
Oh
like,
yeah, dude, I'll never let it go. Like it'll sit in a nice little trophy shelf. I'll eventually end up making it or something. That, dude, why do you still have an HD DVD? Well, 2 reasons. Because I bought it and I like it. It's a collector's item to me. And 2, I
want Sam Raimi's babies.
Sell it even if I wanted to. Like HD DVD is not rare by any stretch of the imagination. You know, like there's tons of them out there still. Just guys like me who kept them.
Who's like, I'm not getting rid of this. At some point, it's coming back, or I'll find something I can.
I was the guy that had the Blu-ray HD DVD player because I was like, I don't know who's going to win it, so I'm going to buy the one that reads them both. And then I also had the 360,
right? Which played HD DVD because it was Microsoft's bet.
Yeah, and I had the little like drive unit for the longest time that plugged in the back and had. So I was like, HD is HD to me, man. Like, right. As long as these things are working, I'll hang on to it. Sadly, now I have none of that, and now it is strictly just a collector's item to me.
And it's the best kind where it's your collector's item where no one else wants it.
Right?
And you're like, this is mine.
It is that collector's item where it's like the only person that would offer you money would be someone who is just insanely rich, and they're just like, I want that one. Like
I have to have that.
Whatever it is about that one just does something for me, and I can honestly offer you a lucrative amount of money where I'd be like, okay, that's cool, because I'll just go buy the other HD DVD version just so I can say I have it still for like $40. You know, because someone was upcharging on it at least a little bit.
So with me, let Like, I didn't seek out horror movies when I was like a kid, because I'm 38. So but when I was watching, so before I tell about my history, I watched all 3 of the movies this past week since we recorded last. I watched Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness. I even watched Within the Woods, which was the movie, the 30-minute short that Sam Raimi made to fund the first Evil Dead. So I've watched it all, and then as I was watching them, I realized, oh, I've seen Army of Darkness, like you said, like on TNT or TBS or whatever, like years when I was like when you're a kid on Saturday, you're flipping through and oh, there's Army of Darkness, because, and I was reading on some of this stuff, Army of Darkness has like, they like there's like no blood. Like there's like one time where like blood shoots out of the well, and then like they didn't really use blood because you're all smashing into skeletons and stuff. Yeah. So it wasn't too hard to cut down for TV because there wasn't too much that was like, oh, we can't show splattering blood. But it's just, if they can show Beastmaster, they can show Army of Darkness. And Beastmaster ran like, it was pretty much probably on TBS or TNT, like Beastmaster, and then Army of Darkness. Like that's just their rotation for like every weekend in like the 90s.
Yeah, the cool thing I like about like the Evil Dead films is no matter which one you catch first, like you're probably not going to catch Evil Dead 2 unless you actually seek it out.
Which is too bad because it is the best of the trilogy.
But if you catch Evil Dead 1 on, Showtime or HBO or something like that, or probably Netflix at this point, like I don't know what streaming services got what, but each one of the films makes you want to like research or find the others as soon as you figure out they're connected. You're like, oh, well, I'm going to go watch this one now because I'm curious. And I kind of remember this because I caught it on the TV in the 90s,
Yep.
Or if you catch Army of Darkness first, you're like, damn, that was good. I wonder what the first ones were like. Each one of the films makes you want to check out the others. And that's the cool, like, that's my favorite part about them. Doesn't matter where you stumble on them. It's like, I am now interested, but fuck, like, I know there's going to be people that like certain films and no matter what series number it is, but at a certain point it was like, if you caught Jason 9088, you were just like, all right.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I wouldn't be mad if I didn't catch another one, I guess, they never, I don't recall like another horror series that made me want to go check the other ones out. Like, it's almost like, the slashers films that you watched, each one was what it was.
Right.
You're
like, yep, that's it. That's what I'm watching. Yeah, you had to make a conscious effort to go watch the rest if you really wanted to get into it. It wasn't like a drive. You had to be like, okay, I'm making this decision to go watch Freddy 1 through 7 or whatever.
Yeah, especially later. Like when all of the films were out, like I could see a person that like caught the first Freddy or caught the first Jason and was just like hooked. They're like, holy shit, man, like that's where it's at. But I don't know how many of them were already out by the time like I was old enough to be able to get my hands on them on a regular basis. You know what I'm saying? So like, it was just kind of like, all right, I caught one of the slashers from like the famous Jason movies, or I caught one of the Freddy films, like I still don't even think I've seen them all.
Yeah, I think I have. I think I mentioned that last week, but I'm questioning myself as well. I know I haven't because I didn't watch the reboot Freddy with the guy who played Rorschach in Watchmen, which the fact that movie got shit on makes me sad because I really like. He's got a 3-word name and I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, because he played a sweet Rorschach.
Oh my god, his Rorschach. I mean, Watchmen by itself is just, that movie is worth it. Jackie Earl Haley is his name. That's who plays Rorschach. He has a name like a serial killer or a mass murderer or an assassination man, like someone who does,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he also looks like I don't know how to put this any other way, really, but like truck stops are his fancy. Very transient locations, like
that man hasn't slept on a real bed in a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot of comings and goings where he prefers to hang out. He's got one of those faces because he was also in Dark Shadows, the remake they turned into the movie with Johnny Depp. He played the like the handyman.
What is Dark Shadows and what is it a remake of? The same title?
Yeah, it's a remake of like a TV show.
Oh, that's right, the TV show. Yeah, that one flopped too.
It was just funny because I love Dark Shadows. Dark Shadows is awesome. Dark Shadows is one of those movies that is like, honestly, you'll either love it or you'll hate it. Right? There's no, I don't think there's any real middle ground with it because it's got Johnny Depp in it.
Right. So you're already.
So you're kind of like, I guess it really depends on how you feel about him as a whole, like outside of Jack Sparrow, for the most part, because I think he plays the character great, but also it's Johnny Depp, like still kind of being Johnny Depp. So you're like, I guess maybe you kind of go, I mean, it's just Johnny Depp in white face paint, right?
Right. When is Johnny Depp ever not being Johnny Depp?
That's true.
I mean, you're going to get it. You get what you pay for. So, yeah. Well, and so over the past week, watching behind the scenes stuff and watching all 3 movies and understanding where it all came from, it makes sense that 2 is what your favorite one is, because it's really, like you said, Army of Darkness goes full campy. Evil Dead tries to go full horror, and Evil Dead 2 merges the two. Like, if you were to work your way, like, if you're a big horror fan and you're like, I'm starting with the scary movies, everyone starts with the Evil Dead, and then they work their way up, they're like, oh, it gets campier. Or if you're a comedy fan with a little bit of dark elements, you start with Army of Darkness and work your way backwards. If you get excited about it, you're like, oh shit, this got dark, as you work your way backwards to the original one.
Yeah, yeah, dude, it's like, there's really no wrong way to watch them, because there's obviously the quick summary at the very beginning of each movie, which is great, because then it makes you, especially if you catch any of the later ones, you go, oh well, shit. Obviously, there's the first one,
right?
Or there's the second one. I better go check those out now. Like, if you're interested in them,
and it's even better. It's even better that there's a different Linda every movie, which makes it almost like a running joke.
Yeah, dude. Like, part of me, especially when like Evil Dead 2, when you first watch it, you're almost confused.
Right. And in fact, for the longest, so to settle the biggest argument is there's 2 sides of the fence. One set of people say that Evil Dead 2 is Sam Raimi remaking Evil Dead 1 with a budget. And the other side of the story is Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2 literally are just back to back. Like, Evil Dead 1 stops and Evil Dead 2 starts, which is actually the truth. And what you're talking about is the opening scene where it's completely different, like, setup to get him to the cabin than all of Evil Dead 1. And there's a reason for that. And you know the reason for that?
What's the reason for that?
They didn't have the rights to the movie. The people who released Evil Dead weren't the same company that was releasing Evil Dead 2. So they didn't have rights to any of the old shots from the first movie. So Sam Raimi and his team had to make up, like, okay, so let's just get Ash and Linda out to the cabin, and we'll just retell Evil Dead 1 in like 15 minutes, which is what they did. The main points of it. Ash gets his girlfriend, they go to a cabin, she gets the necklace, she gets possessed, he chops her head off, he buries her, and and at that point, she comes back, does a little more stuff with him, but we'll talk about that because that's part of that. That's 15 minutes of the first movie. So before we do that, I have some trivia for you that I want you to answer for Evil Dead 2. Are you ready?
Not really.
I know. I can't wait. It's going to be great. All right. Question number 1. There's only 10 questions, so this won't be too bad. And I think when I click them, it answers it for me, so I'll tell you if you're wrong or right away. So don't worry.
Okay,
true or
good.
false? We'll start easy. True or false? One of the pages recovered from the Book of Evil, Book of the Dead, whatever, shows Ash in the past with his boomstick and chainsaw.
True.
Oh, shit, it's not going to tell me right away. Damn it, website. That's okay. That is true, because I know it's true, because I already went through these. Number 2, who plays Henrietta, the cellar bitch? The cellar bitch in Evil Dead 2. The choices are, this is stupid because the choices are stupid, Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, Rob Tappert, or Ted Raimi.
Well, it's Ted.
Of course, because Ted is in everything. Number 3, what is Ash's last name? I'm not even going to give you the options on this one.
Oh, God, dude. I don't even know if I know that.
Okay, hold
actually.
on. Then I'll give you the options.
Hold
Jones.
on. Oh, geez, that's going to bother me now.
Jones, Grant, Williams, or Smith?
Williams.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Number 4, if anybody that's listening to this podcast gets this, feel free to live tweet me the answer if you know it, because I didn't know it listening to it, and if you do know it, you're way older than I am. So the actress that plays Bobby Joe played in which daytime soap opera? Days of Our Lives, General Hospital, Sunset Beach, or Guiding Light?
Guiding Light.
The answer to that is Guiding Light. Very good, sir. You guessed so hard on that one.
Yeah, David. Because I like the only thing about all of those is I think I remember my mom watching Guiding Light a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, it just has to be Guiding Light at that point in time because that's when I caught the movie. So, I don't know. That's how my brain weaved that miracle of a guess together.
True. Okay, so number 6. Ash cuts his left hand off with a chainsaw. True or false?
That's false.
That is correct. It is his right hand. Number 7. What is the name of the professor who owns the cabin in the woods? Your choices are Professor Richard Brown, Jack Cross, Raymond Noby, or Robert Landry.
Oh, man.
I only know this because I had to look at the names and everything on my notes. So this one I'll give you if you don't know.
Hold on. What? Okay, give them to me one more time.
All right, they're all professors. So I'm not saying professor 4 times, okay?
Okay.
Professor Richard Brown, Jack Cross, Raymond Noby, spelled Knowby, or Robert Landry.
Noby.
You are correct, sir. Which other horror movie's item can be seen in the cellar and in the woodshed?
Are we talking about Freddy's glove?
That's correct. If you didn't see it, go back and watch Evil Dead 2, because even on the behind the scenes, they mentioned it in the woodshed, but they didn't show it in the cellar. But I was like, but you and I are watching, I was like, hey, it's there in the cellar too, right next to the door. Like, yeah, so
it was on the left side of the frame there.
Yeah, right next to the door handle, right next to the doorknob. Yep, in the cellar. All right, so what shape does the necklace have when Ash is evil and finds it in the living room floor? What shape is the chain part of it in?
Oh, where it's like a skull?
Correct. And they carry that through. I don't know if it did. I don't think it did it in Evil Dead 1, but it definitely did in 2. And they also did it. Oh, I also watched the reboot, the 2013 reboot as well this week.
I love that
I've been
one.
all over it, dude. It's really good.
I love
it is
that
not
one.
bad at all. So yeah.
Because I like how they took that one and they're like, we're just going horror.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a nice like an adrenaline boost to a movie. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
Yeah.
It was brutal. It was definitely brutal.
Yeah,
Like,
I hope they make another one.
Maybe, I don't know. It had some. The girl who was the nurse, she is on Gotham, and I was like, why do I know her? I was like, oh, you play on Gotham now. I was like, well done for you, nicely done. Because yeah, she was the nurse. She got it pretty bad in the movie.
Is that where she like one that like splits her face open in the bathroom?
No, it's the one where she goes to attack the dude in the glasses, and he smashes her head in with the broken off piece of sink or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because she's like stabbing him with like a needle, like a long like syringe needle, like in his face over and over. And I was just like, stop. I was like, of all the things that are happening in this movie, like stop with the needle in the face. Oh my God. Yeah, that's a rough watch. So it was good though. It was, and then like where she, like the homage to Ash.
Especially if you don't know anything about that one, right? Like, if you weren't, if you were someone who caught it, you just heard that it's going to be more gruesome, or like, hey, it got the stamp of approval from the original guys, and they're like, hey, but they made a legit horror movie. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. Like you still had Evil Dead like burnt in the back of your brain, and then all of a sudden you watched that movie and you went, well, that just fucking erased everything that I thought I was about to see.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. They used 70,000 gallons of blood. That's nice. Well, 50,000 of it was for the final scene because it was raining blood. So I'm sure they used a shit ton of blood. But yeah, that's pretty nuts.
That's so cool.
I think great. Like when, it's just like, oh, it's that many. Well, I would like to see that daily. We need a tank of 50,000 gallons of blood, please. Thank you. Just make that up for us.
Right, like those trucks that go and fill up like above ground pools. It's just one of those pulling up, just
dyed red,
hooking a hose up, and they're like, "All right, make it rain.
We're making it rain, bitches." All right, let's see what we got. 2 more. Oh no, 1 more. Last question. What student movie is the prequel that started the whole series? That's not a prequel. That's a stupid question. Don't listen. It's the one I said earlier, Within the Woods. Don't answer that. It's not a prequel. It was if you have time, go on YouTube. It's on YouTube. It's like 30 minutes long, and it's really bad. Like, I don't know I'm sure it was shot on Super 8 or something, because it was made in like 79 or 78 by literally Sam and Bruce Campbell, and I think Rob Tappert was already their friend, so they were all involved. And I think one of the girls is actually one of the girls who is in the original Evil Dead. Like, it's not a prequel. It's, instead of it being a demon and a book, it's they're camping. They're in a house that's it's like built on an Indian burial ground. Native American burial ground. And he disturbs it, and then Ash is the one. Well, his name is Bruce in the show, in the movie. Bruce becomes possessed, and he attacks everybody in the house. Sam Raimi's in it acting, and Sam Raimi cannot act. Like, I mean, of course, he's probably 17 at the time, so I mean, he does little cameos in a lot of his movies. He even he's in Evil Dead 2 at the very end when Ash arrives in the medieval times.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, it's funny. But that was the quiz. I thought I'd look it up. That'd be kind of fun. Rarely do we get a movie where there's actually like all kinds of shit on the internet about it. Because, like I said at the beginning of this, we usually do new movies to the theaters. But since Movie Pass is shit on itself, and we've talked about Movie Pass for the past 2 weeks, they're trying to recover stuff, but it's still not good, because you have to. If you're going to movie that night, you better go that morning and pick up the ticket for it for that night, because they're going to turn off movies at a certain time of day. Like, when they hit their number, like their budget number, they're like, okay, we've budgeted $200,000 for today. We've hit it. Close all movies down. That's what they're doing right now.
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Yeah. So like, it was okay. Like, some of the morning stuff is not in there, and the evening stuff is all there. Like Mission Impossible opened up, Dark Minds opened up. So they unlocked the movies. The problem is that we were going to review The Meg this week. That was on our original list before Movie Pass went all over the place. But The Meg is like 3D everywhere. Like, there isn't a place that's not showing a 3D version of it, pretty much, or an IMAX version of it. So we wouldn't have gotten to see it anyways. We would have had to do something shady. But yeah, so The Meg is like, it's still not on there because it's in 3D or an IMAX. So they're not going to open those up. I think there's one theater showing a standard version of it, and why it's not showing, I think they're just eliminating it altogether. No matter, you can't even see it in the movie list anymore. So,
damn,
a little bit weird, but there's ways around that. And then yeah, so that's what we were going to originally do, and then Movie Pass dorked it up. So now we're on this horror thing, which is actually more fun. I have all this data and behind the scenes available to me that I don't usually have before we review a movie.
Yeah, there's going to be a plethora of crap.
Right. So to jump into Evil Dead 2, we've already talked a little bit about the beginning of it, but to go into a couple of the management numbers of it, they had a budget of $3.6 million, which they were actually being fined. They actually had some money for it because, and they can thank Stephen King for a lot of it, because Stephen King went to Dino De Laurentiis and said, "You need to find a way to budget to finance this next movie." So Sam Raimi can thank Stephen King for a lot of the success that Evil Dead had around it, because when King found it, I think he saw it at the Cannes Film Festival or Cannes somewhere. He saw it. He called it the most ferociously original horror film of '82. Like, that's the master of horror telling you that shit right there. Telling people, telling a magazine, telling a newspaper that. And so that spread. And so Evil Dead, what everybody, including some of the actors and actresses, mostly the actresses in it, that thought they were going to make this little movie in the woods, no one's ever going to see it, suddenly became this big giant success, like crazy success. I think by the end of it, it was like $500,000. What they was the whole total budget for Evil Dead, maybe even less, because I think it started at like 150 and it ballooned from there. But I mean, that's like pennies. That's a day's worth of shooting on some movies these days. Right. It's insane.
Well, what did I see? Some absurd. Corbin, the late night carpool karaoke guy.
Right.
I guess he was talking to one of the Kardashians, and they asked like, "Why haven't you had Kanye on?" And it was supposed to be like kind of like a woo, like hot topic question, and he was like, "Oh, like we've asked him twice, and he's canceled twice on us." He's like, the second time he canceled, I literally was pulling up in front of his house when we got a call saying like, "Hey, he's just not feeling it today. We got to reschedule, you know, whatever, blah blah blah." He's like, "Yeah, I hope it works out because." These little shoots, I guess, that he does in the carpool karaoke cost like $45,000 to shoot.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, I'm guessing with the insurance and the camera setup and the whatever he has planned has to be interesting price wise. But yeah,
dude. But I mean, and it's just funny because I mean, I know it's generations difference of money and inflation and all of that, but it's like you guys somehow got enough people to throw $150,000 at you at the time off of like your 30-minute film.
Well, that's what it was. They shopped that around. They've played it at film festivals. They played it for college campuses. They charged admission. They raised a large portion of that initial budget for Evil Dead. That's correct. With Within the Woods and maybe a couple other student films, but that was the big one that they used to raise the money for it. And it's this part of Hollywood and this part of movie making that you don't hear any of this anymore. Like whether or not it happens. I mean, just for a comparison, when I went to AwesomeCon in DC this year, like there was a horror movie like showcase. There was like a place where there was some directors who had made horror shorts and differing types of horror, differing ideas, differing levels of competency when it came to directing. But these people were like going to these cons and like showing their movie and trying to get their name out there. I don't know if they were getting paid by the con to do it, and that's how they're raising money for the next feature they're going to be doing. Who knows? But like you don't hear of like these up and coming directors. You don't hear this kind of story anymore in Hollywood. Either it's not publicized, so they don't have 4 billion people trying to make movies to be that one. But I mean, I'm sure for every Sam Raimi in 1979 making Within the Woods that was, making him $150,000 at the end of it all, I'm sure there was a million shit movies that were trying to be shopped around that weren't making it. So I'm sure nothing's really changed. Yeah,
but I also feel like now it's either someone, even if they are a young director, right? They were someone's protege, or they get a really big film, but it's almost like it's a default success film, right? Like I'm not saying, because you look at some of the guys that catch like these Marvel films and then you look at where they came from and you're like, Jesus Christ. I mean, obviously they have no reference to anything superhero before or whatever, but at this point in time with those films, like you could really toss just about any director in there.
With the Marvel ones?
Yeah. Like, and
they pretty much hand you like, here's how you're going to do this. Go do this and come back in a year and a half.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And that's the big thing in film right now. And, and let alone hearing about, or if you do hear about an up and coming artist, they may have started in TV somewhere and got their breakthrough, like HBO writing or, stuff like that. But very rarely do you hear about someone that blew a whole genre like up and made it popular again, or immediately jumped in the conversation of like, holy shit, have you seen this? Right. Like I don't remember the last film I've watched where I've been.
The only one I can think of recently, and I'm not sure if it works for your scenario or for what we're talking about, but Jordan Peele. Like he was an actor, a comedic actor, and then he has directed one movie so far. He's currently directing his second one, but the first movie he directed was Get Out, and Get Out blew the horror genre out of the water and won every friggin' award there was to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, Get Out was definitely, I mean, even when I watched Get Out was one of those movies where I was like, holy shit, dude, that was a good film. But he's already been in Hollywood.
Right. And that's why I say I'm not sure if it fits into your scenario.
Yeah. Like, well, and even as good as like Get Out definitely hits the part of, hey, we did something different in a horror genre that made it stand out, and it's a good film and it's scary. Like, it nails all those, but it's kind of like, hey, that's awesome. That was your first shot at truly writing something that obviously you felt like comfortable enough putting out. I'm not saying that he hasn't written 100 things before, but I don't know how many movie scripts he's just got chilling in his like back room going, not quite there yet, right? Like, I don't know how many attempts he's done at that, but he's still been in Hollywood. Like, he's been around writers, he's been around other actors and like the whole flow. And I guess at this point in time, it's also like the Hollywood empire and machine has been around so long now, right? Like, everything, it just is who you know, right?
I mean, that's the world. That's where we live in now.
Like, it would be very rare for someone to kind of just come out of the woodwork like Sam Raimi did with a new way of doing horror films or something, unless you know somebody. I mean, it's almost kind of creepy to think about.
Well, and and maybe it's because of the age we are, and what we see in Hollywood now is that we don't see, I feel like a lot of the people who did like landmark horror films in the 70s, like mid to late 70s and early 80s, the ones that are trademarked as these are horror staples, in the genre of horror. You need to see this. Like, you have some of your stuff from the 70s, Last House on the Left, things like that. That's like John Carpenter, right? Am I wrong with that? Am I right? Is that John Carpenter?
You know what? I couldn't tell you, man, to be honest with you.
That's okay. Magic of TV, magic of podcasting. 72. I didn't realize it was that old. No, I'm not right. It's not John Carpenter. It's Wes Craven. So you have, the guy who came up with Freddy. That was one of his first shots in horror. And it's a staple, whether or not you've seen it. I mean, whoever's seen it, it's considered one of those, if you like horror, you probably should watch this movie. If you want to know where everything else came from in the future, this is where a lot of it began, was like movies like that. Like, maybe that's how you didn't pick Last House on the Left, so I didn't go do background research on Wes Craven. So I don't know if it's the same, if that's how it happened in the 70s and 80s. Like, you made small movies, you shopped them around, you got them sold, and then you made bigger stuff and you got a break. Or something you made took you a little bit of money and you made a shit ton of money off of it. Kind of like the George Lucas thing. Like, Star Wars was filmed on a fairly insignificant budget compared to what it was pulling in. Jaws was Jaws, same way. Like, Jaws was Spielberg's like second major film when it first came out, and it's like one of the horror 70, like in the 70s, like massive horror movies of all time. You should always, if you're gonna say you're a horror fan, you have to have watched Jaws. So I think Spielberg, it may have been his, other than Sugarland Express, everything he had done before that was TV or shorts. But that's the whole TV thing you're talking about earlier. So Jaws was his second major film, and he had a budget of something small and it was the first blockbuster. Like, it was what you saw pictures of people lined up around the block. And the same thing for Star Wars and all that stuff. So maybe that's how it was back then. He's got lucky.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine obviously like a lot of it is skilled individuals catching a break, right? But I also feel like back then
back in my day
they were still able to themselves get the foot in the door with like an offering. Like, nowadays, like, I feel like even if, especially to be a director, right, you've probably had to have been a writer at some point, or did this type of schooling and then caught a protege internship somewhere, right? You know what I'm saying? And then you obviously stumble upon another director that takes a liking to you and somehow gets you going, right? But even if they came in with a great idea, at that point it would be like, all right, I'm the famous guy, so I'm the producer. Here's your like really, really subcredit, and now you may have a chance of getting something going. Right. Like, the bigger guy's gonna grab his piece and take his everything before now. Like, there's just this, that's what I went through, this is what I've been through. Like, I don't think we'll ever catch a new director or a new anybody that just seems like they're out of left field,
out of nowhere. I agree with you on that. And if it's, I can't think of a movie in the past that's recent, and it could just be the fact that we have kids and don't see a whole shit ton of movies and all that good stuff. But you're right. I don't think of that as a story, as like something we've heard recently. Even with Jordan Peele, you knew him from TV, so he had his foot in the door already. And they're like, yeah, sure, this guy wants to do a horror movie, fine. Like, I'm sure it'll be hilarious. Have a good time, sir. And then like, no, it's fine. I'll win 139 of the 190 nominations that he had for that movie over all of the different all the different award giving platforms. Like, he won 139 of the 190 he was nominated for. That movie was nominated for.
That's awesome. It's
insane. Awesome. Yeah. So exactly. And one Oscar there's an Oscar out of that as well. So good on you. But yeah, you're right. We don't see this kind of stuff anymore, which is cool. So it's fun. It's fun to see. And that was, of course, Evil Dead. So Evil Dead 2, you had Stephen King reacting to Evil Dead 1 in such a great way that so much that he went to Dino De Laurentiis and said, hey, you need to release, this needs to be your movie. You need to produce this movie. It needs to come out of your shop. And the best part is when you watch Evil Dead 2, it's Rosebud Productions, which is a fake company that De Laurentiis Productions made up because they weren't allowed to release an unrated version of a unrated movie. And Evil Dead 2 went through so many chops and edits trying to get it an R rating that they ended up just releasing it unrated because they couldn't get it down to an R. which is fun. When you see it now, it's hilarious that they had to fight that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you think of Evil Dead 2013 and you go, wait a second, Evil Dead 2 couldn't get an R, but that's got an R.
Well, yeah, dude. Like now it's almost more of a holy shit. We finally got a movie that is R.
True,
right?
We can't even get an R movie
everything
anymore.
Is PG-13 nowadays.
Right. I hate that.
And
I hate that about.
And back then it was like, I just feel like there were more R-rated films, but their standards were so ridiculous, right?
Well,
you know, it was like, oh, your blood is. Well, that looks like an actual blood red, so you get an R. But then if it was green, they were like, cool.
To be completely honest with you, back in 82, there wasn't a PG-13. You had PG or R. It wasn't until Red Dawn that you got your first PG-13 movie ever made. Like, because, and I think it was Indiana Jones, I think it was Spielberg that made them have to make a PG-13 because they gave Temple of Doom a PG rating, but like in that movie, and if you think about all of like the classic PG movies where it's like they had to rip a guy's heart, a still beating heart out in Temple of Doom. So, and they gave it a PG rating. That would like put you in an R status nowadays.
Yeah.
If you want, okay, we are known for, if you're new to the show, welcome. We are known for our tangents. We do not have the hours to go down the PG-13 rant because that is a very, very deep hole to dig into. And it's a very cool history about like the movie that made the movie that made the MPAA come up with the PG-13. Like where Spielberg's like, well, if you had something in between a PG and an R, we could sell it to a bunch of, it's all about the money and all that stuff. So that is a whole different story.
Yeah,
if we hit a week where we can't figure out what to watch, we'll just do a whole episode on why PG-13 exists. It's crazy. Okay, so Sam Raimi, right place, right time. Stephen King pushing for it. The production company created a fake production company called Rosebud just to put the movie out. So everything was, by this point, Evil Dead itself was so critically acclaimed for horror that they were like, give this kid some money, let him do what he needs to do. And he comes up with this movie, which with all those things lining up, this movie was fantastic. Like they could not be upset with what they got at the end of it.
No, like the movie is cinematic perfection. I don't care what anybody says. And the
scores tell you that. Rotten Tomatoes has it at 98%. I mean, this literally is the highest rated movie you and I have reviewed on this podcast on Rotten Tomatoes. We hate Rotten Tomatoes, but honestly, sometimes they're right. I'm not sure I'd give it a 98, but it's definitely in the 90s.
Mouth.
Yeah, finally we working around on it. And the audience rating gives it an 89, which I don't know. If you're a fan of the horror genre, you should be giving it into the 90s. I'm giving it like a 95.
Yeah, but I could see that, dude. But you know how many people end up going to horror movies that just are not horror people? It's almost like you get like a group that's like, I ain't scared, but they hate horror films. Like they just hate them. Like it's not their thing. Or you get like people that are just grossed out by shit.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are grossed out by blood in general. There's like, I just don't like it. You know, like I could see the fan ratings coming out of like, for every 100 there was like a 2. Like, nope.
One guy's like,
fuck
ew.
that.
Ew. And then IMDb has it at 7.8, which I think is low, but that's a whole bunch more people who are like, I don't really like it. So whatever. But so to start the movie off, like we said earlier, it's literally like 15 minutes of them, because they don't have the rights to Evil Dead, they have to get Ash and at least Linda out to the cabin. The cabin has to be the place where he's at, because so he drives out there. He's in the classic car that's in every Raimi movie. They get out there. She's already got the necklace, so we already see like the magnifying glass necklace, which I thought there was. I wish in all of my background research of this and watching the behind the scenes, like no one ever said, yeah, it's a magnifying glass because blank. No one ever. I want there to be like some sort of meaning behind it, but there's not. At least from what no one said anything. So I never understood why when you got a box that in the first movie almost was like that color box. It's like what jewelry store is that? Like Tiffany or the turquoise color? Is that Tiffany? I don't know. I don't buy jewelry.
Dude, I've never bought anything from Tiffany's in my life.
Me neither.
So,
I just know there's a box.
I don't even think I could afford their magazine. Like,
can I please have your magazine? No, you cannot have it. You cannot afford this magazine.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I think the one time I've been near a Tiffany's shop was in Germany. I think it was a Tiffany's, but there was also like a Ferrari dealership right next to it in like downtown Dusseldorf, which was like the coolest thing I've ever seen in the world, because this old school German building that couldn't have been more than 25 feet wide, but you know, it went way back, had like one of those like subterranean garages. And so like I was standing outside of the window because the dude at the door wouldn't let me in, but there was a really rich guy. Yeah, there was people, there was hired help at the doors of these expensive places. And like they wouldn't even let you stand in front of the shop for too long, because I was standing there while this really rich guy was in there like cycling through the escalators in the Ferrari shop. And I was like, holy shit. And then I remember the really expensive jewelry store, because this lady came walking out and had like this god awful diamond shielded breastplate thing like covering her chest.
That's some Beyonce shit right
there.
Yeah,
dude, it was insane. I was like, what why? Like, and that's probably about as close as I've ever came to anything near Tiffany's.
Well, yeah, you're closer than I got, so don't worry. Anyways, so she already has her necklace. He's like playing the piano, like, well, in the movie, like, and she's dancing around in her underwear and a t-shirt. And, you know, he goes to get up and get a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne from the other room. And it's next to like the Book of the Dead is laying there. And also like the tape recorder, like from the, you know, that has the recording of the professor reading about it. So she goes to change. He turns on the tape recorder. He's looking through the book. We learn about the Professor Noby that you answered correctly earlier. So we learned about him.
Yeah, that was straight guesswork right there.
But yeah, you see a little bit of his background and getting like, you see him as he's reading about, or as he's narrating it on the tape, you see like him going in and finding the Necronomicon and finding the Kandarian dagger, you know, in the tombs that they found. You know, as he's reading the passages from it, you know, you start to see the demon cam, the Sam Raimi, you know, running through the woods, the deep music going behind it as it's coming towards the house, and then, you know, it hits the house, breaks through the window in the room that Linda's in, of course, and she disappears. Ash goes looking for her. What happens? He ventures out into the woods to find her, and she's already possessed, and as soon as
he's like looking around all confused, and
so you have to remember this is a retelling of the story. So it's not like he's been through everything from Evil Dead 1. It's just retelling, just trying to get Linda possessed and him lopping her head off, and you get those scenes from the first movie reshot.
Yeah, because then she breaks out the window, and then it's like there's a cut scene, and then somehow the window's like boarded back up. Like
oh, that's later though, because so he lops her head off, he buries her, then he runs, then he drives. I think this is when he drives away, like and tries to leave and comes to the.
Oh yeah, because the bridge is all tore up.
Yep, which is in line with the first movie. It wasn't him that found it; it was the other guy. But they're trying to bring in at least elements from the first movie. They can remember the bridge is out, Linda's got her head cut off, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I still don't. Yeah. Okay. Anywho, whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's all. Yeah. It's like,
I know it's a retelling, and I know like in my head I'm mixing up parts from the first and the second one, and I'm like, really? But I thought it went. Like I'm just having the conversation that doesn't need to be spoken. And
right after he gets lucky and cuts her head off and buries her, then he's back in the house.
Yeah, because I thought like it was.
Yeah, this whole flashback really messes me up.
Well, no, because there's a scene because I thought. He looks out the window and she's like
the body comes out of the ground.
No. It's before that because she's Demon Linda and oh no, god damn it. Maybe the body does. So like, do they just ignore that?
No, so he kills her, buries her.
Well, no, I know that, but I'm saying like between the scene where the demon camera comes through the window and she's like gone, right?
Right.
What is this? What is the build up to where he is like, oh shit, I gotta kill her.
He goes in the room, checks that she's there, or check that she's not there because he heard her scream. She's not there. Then he goes out into the woods, calling for Linda still, and then she comes out and she's already possessed. Eyes are wide over, and she goes to walk after him. He falls over, grabs a shovel by luck as she dives for him and lops her head off.
There it is. Okay, God, I could not remember that part to save my life. I was like. I know he does it. How does he do it? Where's it? What is it?
Right. And at this point, he buries her. And this is when the first film ends and the evil forces, I'm guessing because he left the tape running, the evil force is sweeping through the woods. And this is the part from the end of the first movie and the beginning of the second movie where from this part in the second movie where it busts through the door, each door of the cabin, and it hits him and he starts flying through the woods. Like, spinning around and he gets possessed. He falls into that water.
Yep.
And now he's possessed.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it was the middle of the night when he was burying her. He gets possessed. He wakes up in the water and he's all possessed. Everything's going crazy. But then the sun comes out right away and he's lucky enough to make it. Like he gets unpossessed when the sun comes up. Like his eyes go from white back to normal and he's okay, but he passes out. Like he passes out, like still in the water, practically passes out.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
he drowned himself.
Yeah, like sleeping all day, and then he wakes up. This is when he looks at the cabin and sees like the superimposed eyes and teeth and mouth, and it says "Join us."
Yep.
So he this is when he jumps in the Oldsmobile and leaves, goes to leave, and gets to the bridge, and the whole bridge is gone, and he's like, this is the first part where he gets his. It's the classic Ash Williams, like where he stretches his neck out and he's like, no, like screaming at the thing. So the bridge is all tore up. He has to go back. So he's driving the Oldsmobile back. The woods, it's starting to get dark. The woods, the woods like fall a tree in front of his car and he goes through the windshield.
Yeah. Cause he goes flying out and then gets basically knocked out again, right?
Yeah, he sleeps for a little bit longer.
Yeah. Then what? Why?
Then he runs. Then he gets up from the car accident and runs into the cabin, being chased by this whatever's in the woods.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, because I was like,
and then he runs.
What gets him going again though? Because I was like, he just doesn't like stumble back all nonchalantly. Like he hauls ass back inside.
Yeah, he hauls ass into the cabin and then goes through like every door in the house. Like smashing down the doors as he's being chased.
Yeah, that's right.
Like
that's
through the walls.
Yeah, and he runs between the walls, and then you have the whole just like whooshing sound taking over, and him and basically literally watching him run through every room in the house.
Yeah, to the point where you want to watch it. To the point I felt like the way he was running, I was like, is this like The Shining where the rooms don't really match up if you actually mapped out where he was running? I'm like, that seems like way too much for that little cabin.
Right? Yeah, the cabin grew in size.
Right. So at this point, they cut from the house and we're at an airport and we find Annie Noby, which is a daughter of the professor who was at the cabin, and she has found... She's bringing back with her some pages of the Book of the Dead, along with her boyfriend Ed, and they are talking about the cabin, that her father's out there, the fact that he hasn't reached her, and he hasn't reached the father. Like, he tried calling him for the past week and hasn't gotten him. So they start to drive to the cabin, and that's all we get from there. So now that Ash has evaded the demon, he's in the house. He wakes up, and this is where the rocking chair is rocking, the piano's playing itself, and then he looks out the boarded up window. That you're right. Who boarded the window up? I have no clue. Because that was the window that broke that like Linda was at. And he sees where he buried her, and her body pops up, and then the head comes up with it, and it starts doing the dancing to the music like she was when he was playing piano earlier.
Yeah, the most satanic Barbie doll ever.
Yeah, like, not even, there's boobs, but it's not nice boobs. Not nice boobs at all.
No. Yeah,
they may well have had Ted in that outfit.
Her body decomposed so quickly.
Yeah, right. So that the body like dances with the head, and then it just like kind of does like a ballet leap into nothing.
She does the whole like creepy ballerina dance and like rolls the head up and down the arm, and like the whole time she's laughing, and like Ash is like, no. Right, and it's beautiful stop motion. I love that. There's still, there's something about watching movies before CG or before a lot of CG that like you get stop motion, because stop motion is so fun to watch, and what it takes to go through stop motion is amazing. Like, to make stop motion happen, like the real artists. Two of my amazing. Like favorite stop motions are Coraline and
fuck that movie.
Fuck Coraline. And the Trolls, and the best part about them is at the end of each movie, like Coraline has the outtakes where like one of the guys is like adjusting her, but he's making it like Coraline is annoyed with his hands. Mm-hmm. So as they show it sped up, it looks like she's like swatting him away, like leave me alone. And then in the end of the Box Trolls, there's like old English dudes that are like sweeping the floor and stuff, and then all of a sudden as it pans out, it like pans to the animators like moving them all around, like moving the whole city and stuff, and like actually moving the blocks on the ground to make them wobble as they're walking and all that shit. And I was like, God, that is so fucking cool.
It's cool, but man, it sounds like it's monotonous, but it looks so cool. Like I've seen some of the behind the scenes shots for like, what is it called, like Nobu and the Two Strings. That's a recent one. That's also stop motion as well. It's like, it's an Asian inspired one. That's I don't know.
That's the one that's got like it's like that cardboardish like stop motion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but it's insane, absolutely insane. But yeah, so this is stop motion, normal stop motion, not like the cool retro stuff we see now.
Oh, what is fuck? There's a movie. Oh no, I think it was in the Community. When not the Community, nope.
Parks and Rec,
where he does the whole like stop motion thing, and he's like I have 10,000 images or whatever, and he's like, oh my God, that was only half a second of waiting time. You know, like that's what's crazy about it is like just for, and especially like in the really detailed ones. You know, it's like 500 just different minor adjustments just for them to like reach like they're grabbing something, because they're capturing they have all the different heads with the facial expressions like people make as they're moving through it. It's insane. Yep.
Yeah, I can see like making something walk and move its hands, but like the facial expressions and all the other like minor shit they have to tweak. It's just nightmarish. I have no idea how they do it. And then those guys are the true champions.
Right? Like, you got to be really dedicated to your craft.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, back to this movie.
So she disappears into the woods, and then she reappears right at the window he's at. and starts smashing his head against the window. Like she reaches through the boarded up window and just grabs his head and starts smashing his head.
Yeah, and the best is like you can see Ash like grab the wrist, and you can like just watch him physically throw himself into that wall like every few seconds.
What's even better is after you're watching all the behind the scenes stuff is you can hear Sam Raimi like, no, do it again. Do it harder, Bruce. Smash your head into there harder. Like they would torture the shit out of each other on those sets. The people they were like the worst best friends ever. Like, in fact, when he's flying through the woods backwards when he first gets possessed, and they have it all, it's all filmed, but then they have it sped up to make it look even crazier. When you watch it like in normal speed, it's Sam whipping all the branches at his face, and he is like letting him have it. Okay. So yeah, it's great. Those two's relationship is hilarious.
Yeah, that'd be cool to have a friendship like that, right? Like having friends is cool. Like, that's a fun thing. Everybody's got friends. But, like, how cool would it be to be, like, I don't know, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck? You know what I'm saying? Like, you were got buddies, and then, like, the thing you guys, like, just happen to both enjoy is the thing that you made it in. And you're like, dude, we're both best friends who happen to be actors and directors. You know, like, just, like, I don't know. Or, like, you and your buddy became the dudes that invented, like, wingsuits together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that would just be fucking cool as shit.
Right.
That's why someone needs to pay us for our.
Or you and your buddy have a great podcast.
That's what I'm saying. Someone needs to pay us for our podcast, man. Like, I mean, honestly, we can talk about anything, really. If you need someone to fill 2 to 4 hours of your time, we can easily fill that.
We're here for you. So after she's smashing his head against the barred up windows or the boarded up windows, he wakes up in the chair, like in the rocking chair, and this is when he just starts like screaming. Just losing his mind.
No, doesn't she bite his hand through the window?
This is when he's in when he's in the chair and he's screaming, then all of a sudden her head comes flying and lands in his lap.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and that's when she's like, "Hello, lover," and then she bites his hand, and then so it's like him doing his normal slapstick comedy of like trying to get her head off of. To let go from biting his hand. So he goes all through that main living room, like smashing the head against everything he possibly can.
Yeah, that deer in that room is still one of the most terrifying things in the world.
Yeah, we're not to your creepy deer yet. Don't worry. We'll get to your creepy deer.
Haunts me, man. It haunts me.
Right. And this is the part where this is the part in the behind the scenes where, and there wasn't really a good answer for this, but when he's trying to get the head off his hand, he's on the ground and then you hear the words woodshed, but he definitely doesn't say it. Like his mouth doesn't move. It's been dubbed in post, and it's not even Ash's voice, to the point where when he was working with Kurt Russell on Escape from LA or whatever, like later on, the first thing he said to him, being an Evil Dead fan, was like, say woodshed. Because that was not you who said that shit. Like, who dubbed that shit in there? So this is when he runs out to the woodshed with the head attached to his hand, and he puts her head in the vise.
Yes.
Right. So at this point, he goes and looks, and he sees there's an outline for where a chainsaw should be. So he goes and grabs a chainsaw, and this is where she changes back into her normal self for a second, like the demon possessing her, like.
Well, this is where he goes to grab the chainsaw. And he looks and it's not there, and her body comes through with the chainsaw.
Yeah, you're right. And then he had the whole like him getting swatted, you know, with that dummy with the chainsaw in it, and then gets out of it, and then that's when he's all ramped up to kill Linda, and then her voice like switches back, and she's like, "Oh no!" Which, okay, to the demon, to the Deadites in this is what I don't get, right? Mm-hmm. So she switches and goes all like nice girl Linda, and literally gets Ash to the point where he's like, I'm not going to do this. And right before he basically gives up from about to, I don't even know how to put it, kill his decapitated girlfriend again. Right.
Like she switches back to Deadite Linda and like starts running her mouth again. And he's like, and then just like, and it was almost like, that scared the motivation into him to like finish what he needed. But I always questioned that part, because I was like, Deadite's not playing a smart game there. Like you literally had the dude like backing off.
Yeah, true.
to stay alive a little longer.
Yeah, well, and it's like, I guess what's there left to lose if you're just now they're just fucking with him because it's not like you can do anything anymore. Well, I guess you could get your body back, but he kind of cut that in half too, so there wasn't a whole bunch of body to go back to.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not like it's not like he's hurting the Deadite. They just go back to hell, so it's not like they can just go get in another body. I would assume. Like, I'm trying to when you try to grasp the whole like logistics of the Evil Dead universe, it's kind of like, can you be, because most of it, especially in Ash versus Evil Dead, which you and I are both huge fans of and watched the whole series, like once you're possessed, you're supposed to not be able to come back. But we literally see Ash get possessed in this movie, come back when the sun comes back out. And then he loses it. Then his hand gets possessed. That gets hacked off. Then he gets possessed. But then the necklace brings him back. Like, he's like the only one who's able to come back from it.
Well, because he's the chosen one, man.
Well, true. I mean, we all know that. He is the chosen one with the boomstick.
But I always wondered that too. Like, if you kill, like, okay, so like you're possessed by a Deadite. I shoot you in the head. Is it like one of those things where like possessing as a Deadite's like a bee sting? Like, all right, man, hey, if you're gonna take that gamble of possessing that body, like if they off you, you're done. Like, you know, or is it like they get sent back to hell? Because I always imagined it was just a kind of a never-ending army of evil souls.
Yeah, like they just go back. It's not like you're killing. It's not like you're getting rid of the soul. They're just going back, and the human soul that they replaced is already gone. Like, it's gone to wherever it's going to go, whether it goes to hell or I don't think it's allowed to go anywhere but hell from what the Deadites say. But can you believe the Deadites when they're yelling at you like, I'm already fucking your soul in hell, or whatever the fuck they're yelling half the time when they're trying to rile
the
him
Deadites
up.
eat the soul, so I assume like when they possess somebody outside of like Ash and obviously some
Pedro.
But Pedro also became like a super brujo. You know, like I was just gonna say, apparently it seems to boil down to just like a power scale, like really where you boil like
whether or not you can come back, whether or not your soul can come back.
Yeah, like whether your determination is strong enough. Like everybody gets that trial by fire, and they're like, hey, either you can go fight the good fight, or that guy's gonna eat your soul. So I always imagined like the people that get possessed and kind of seem to stay possessed, because like even when Ash is like possessed, it's always like a what the hell's going on, you know, like whatever Deadite's
like he's still
like
kind
whatever
of there.
Yeah, like whatever Deadite's in there's like not like almost more like, oh shit, I made it through the door, you know.
Like I got in.
Yeah, and then like Ash ends up whatever doing his Ash thing, you know. But I kind of wonder, I don't think their soul goes anywhere. I think their soul gets legit eaten.
Maybe.
And then, and then the Deadite just goes back to hell, and there's just a corpse.
Which makes you feel good if he has to destroy them every time. I mean, because he doesn't do anything but kill everybody who gets possessed. So if the souls were retrievable, that makes him a mass murderer. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely probably, now that I think about it a little bit more, it's definitely like once you're a Deadite, you're done. Like they ate your soul. So I don't know what
he calls him a.
I don't know what
he even
that
calls
means.
him a husk in this movie or something. He calls that a husk, like the body is a husk, meaning there's no souls coming back to it, which is true. Like they have the ability to turn off like the gross looking stuff to like make it look human again, but the soul is gone. It's really the Deadite talking.
Now here's another thing. Because now I'm going down this rabbit hole. Okay, so let's say they eat the soul. Is it like a snack, or is it just like the soul gets like regurgitated back in hell and it's constantly ate?
I don't know. I think they probably end up. The soul is probably in hell. So if you have like a Constantine situation, he can probably go back out and get it, but unless the body's available, they got to put it in a different body. So,
dude, what a shitty draw that would be.
Right? You know what?
Like, what if you were like a really good person, and like some Deadite just like comes and snatches your soul on a Tuesday, and like you just get thrown in hell? Like there's no like overruling power. Like no, like you just ate the wrong. Like, hey, dude, you got to eat your soul, but at the end of the day, like this guy's going off to the good place.
Right. That's kind of fucked up. You don't want to think about stuff like that.
Well, it kind of makes me want. Well, because there's when you like, especially when you get into the TV show, there's a whole lot of, it's all like they always talk in we's, like there's many and us, but it seems like there's a very like, I know they want to take over the earth and just rain down bad shit, but it always seemed like there was some end game from someone else,
right?
You know, so a lot of this was always like, well, if you guys are just going around eating souls, man, like you're not listening to management because you're not getting any further than where you were.
Rabbit hole.
Right? Like, yeah, now it's like, well, because what's like, I would get it if they were just like, I like killing humans. And they were just saying like, I'm going to eat your soul. But now that I think about like, where does it go at the end of that? It's like, man, we got this whole like weighted plate of good shit, bad shit. Is there like some kind of like, what if an angel popped in and, or the opposite of a deadite and was like, I'm going to heal your soul. You know?
Well, now that I mentioned it, like I said, I kind of want to see an Ash Williams Constantine crossover, man. I know there was Evil Dead comic books. I wonder if that was the same company that did Constantine. What if it's in the same universe? Because that would be fucking awesome. Because to be honest, like as cocky as Constantine is, and like how nonchalant he is about everything he does, dealing with souls and with hell and going back and forth, and as nonchalant and just blowing away deadites that Ash is, those two teamed up would literally be comic gold.
Yeah, dude, that would be awesome. You know what I like too is because Ash's character has always aged through the movies and even in the TV show. Like they don't even there was no trying to make him young. You know, they were just like, all right, dude, we got Bruce. We're gonna roll with it. You know, like we make this work. Constantine is I think one of, now I'll probably be wrong on this. I don't want to say one of the only, but he's probably in rare company as his comic book character in like the original run. He was the only comic book character that aged throughout the series. So if, you know, whatever the run was, like if it was year 5 in the comics, he had aged 5 years.
Yeah, only 5. I wonder if it was an aging because of what he does. Like he's, you know what I'm saying? Like
I don't know, but
it was on his body.
I don't know. Like it was. He is one of the only comic characters that, like, when you go back from the beginning, you know, like he just always has aged with the comics. It's cool. Like I like that instead of it just being Superman forever at 32. Right? You know,
that's sexy 32, right?
Yeah. Like, hey, I'm still in my prime and I'm accomplished. Like I got 2 more solid years in me before things start going to shit, but it's okay. I got money. I'm taken care of.
True. Yeah. That'd be fun. Anyway, that's another tangent. But yeah, that definitely dealing with the same stuff though. Like any possession style storyline could be real cool to cross over with Ash, who's, you know, you have Exorcist who's trying to exorcise the demon. You have Constantine who's doing the same thing. You have Ash who just kills it. Just kills the body that's in. Yeah,
well, then we could probably bring in, like, my other favorite Exorcist, bring in Castor Felix. And he's from a book series I read, and he's an exorcist, but his favorite weapon is a whistle.
That does what?
Like, no joke. Well, okay, so, like, the whole premise of that, their exorcisms, like, you know, a lot of exorcisms have always been based on, you know, the Bible or some holy word or whatever. In this principle, you're either in tune with the afterlife or you're not. And so he's kind of like in between. And he actually has like a tuned whistle in E, and he sends out these like psychic feelers and can like match up with whatever ghost or demon he's hunting for and find like the perfect like counter rhythm. And he like blows this whistle and can like make him appear or, you know, exorcise him and do all this other shit. It's fucking cool, man. And it's like real like dark too. So,
nice.
So you're like, oh, there's this exorcist blowing a whistle, like, thanks, Corey. That sounds really awesome. Like, no, there's a lot of fucked up shit that goes on in the books that you're like, I feel like you should need a little bit more than a whistle, homie.
I'm going to correct you because I don't want the one person who's read his books to be yelling at you on their car right now, but it's Felix Castor.
I thought I said it backwards, dude. I totally thought I did, and I went, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with it. Like, don't correct yourself. Just bite that bullet and just go. But yeah, as soon as it left my lips in the back of my head, I went, "You said that backwards.
You're fucking wrong." That's what I'm here for, to point out when you're wrong all the time.
Best friends.
Best friends forever. Oh, man. Okay, so let's see. So we've done Linda's head. We chopped her head up in the vise, and he's back at the cabin. He's got the double-barrel shotgun. This is where he looks in the mirror. Like in the first movie, instead of pushing his hand through it, he looks in the mirror. He's trying to tell himself that he's fine. He's like, "You're fine." And then the mirror reaches out and grabs him. The mirror Ash reaches out and grabs him. He's like, "You're not fine. You just cut your girlfriend's head up in half in the woodshed." So
yeah, and that was cool because like, and then it pans out. And you see he's like choking himself, and he's like legit like going crazy. It. Like it was, I like the way they showed his like mental
downward spiral.
Yeah, like it was a cool way to do it. Like for a guy that had just been thrust into this situation, right? Like all of a sudden, objects in the house are moving, like and laughing, and it's. I appreciate it because it adds a little bit more to the whole like Deadite vibe. Like, was because the Deadites always appear just to be complete assholes and like, "Oh, I want to eat you," blah 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 blah. Like, but were they messing with him, or was this like that house? Like we said, it seemed like it was bigger than it was. So like, does the house itself kind of have a life of its own with what's going on, right?
Yeah, I would assume that in this environment, in this universe, that because the woods attack people and the house changes when it needs to. I mean, hell, the house superimposes a face and teeth, over it when he was outside of it. So yeah, I would assume everything in that general area of the book is affected by whatever power this is. And it's a massive amount of power.
Yeah. No, it's definitely off the charts.
Right. And so this scene after he confronts himself in the mirror is when his hand, the bite mark, all the black veins start appearing like they did on his sister's foot or his girlfriend's foot, whichever one in the first one, the black veins that radiate out from the wound. It happens to his hand, and his hand starts going. His fingernails grow long, and then it's pretty much Bruce Campbell fighting his hand like for the next 5 straight minutes.
Yeah, dude. Like I told you when we were watching it together. I mean, there's the two best actors in the movie are Bruce Campbell's hand and Bruce Campbell.
Right. For this 5 minutes, it's the best acting by 2 separate entities you've ever seen.
Yes.
All attached to the same body. And it's funny because like I watched when Evil Dead 2 came out, there was some horror awards they did, and like when he's fighting his hand and he goes into the kitchen, he tries to drown the hand, and then the hand starts smashing plates against his head and like knocking him out. Like one of the things he does is like grab himself by the back of the head and throw himself into a flip onto the ground. Like he does that shit on stage, like when he's going to like accept this horror award, and the crowd goes nuts, and he just does it on a whim. He's like, "I'm just gonna flip on this. I'm just gonna pull this move." And if anybody doesn't know that's listening and is a Evil Dead and Sam Raimi fan, is he and a bunch of folks, at least him and a few others, were huge Three Stooges fans. So if anything during these movies reminds you of something you've seen on the Three Stooges, it's not unintentional. Pretty much the entire scene in the kitchen where Bruce Campbell is smashing himself in the head is just straight up slapstick comedy that could be pulled from a Three Stooges show. Later on in the episode where Bobby Joe catches the eyeball in her mouth, like she's screaming in the mouth, the eyeball flies across the room and catches her in the mouth and she chokes on it. Like that's straight from a Three Stooges show. So Sam Raimi, it's just cool the little stuff he puts into it. And it's all on purpose. It's not like, oh, that could be a Three Stooges gag. No, it is a Three Stooges gag. He's just lifted it as an homage. So it's awesome. It's so cool to watch.
Yeah, especially like after you listen to a podcast like ours and people tell you that information, you just appreciate it a little bit more.
Even the people listening, even the people in the podcast appreciate it more.
Yeah, dude, because I don't do any of that stuff.
Right, which is, but that's what makes this so much fun when you and I do this, is because you love things just, I love this. You said, last week you were like, Evil Dead 2, and I was like, okay, so you're like, I've loved this for my entire life. I don't even need to watch it again, even though we did watch it. Like, you're like, I know this movie backwards and forwards, but then I go do all the stupid research because I'm like, I want to know everything about this. And I do this, and to be honest with you, there's been numerous movies before we ever did this podcast years ago that I lose myself in the trivia section of IMDb while I'm watching it and then don't watch the movie because I'm reading all the trivia about all the behind-the-scenes shit.
Oh, yeah, dude. I remember like the first 2 years of our friendship where you would send me trailers and then you would talk about like the IMDb like facts about like what's going on and stuff. And I just remember going, I didn't even watch the trailer. Like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Like, this is super. I'm interested now, but like, I don't watch trailers because I'm like, I don't want to give fucking anything away because I know they're going to put some cool shit in there. But yeah, like,
so true.
Even now, like, I still like, I almost like to take it at face value, you know, until because I just feel like now it's like, well, I'm going to get invested in this person and really like him. And then I'm going to find out they're like been a serial rapist behind stage. You know, I'm just like, I don't want to dig too deep into anything in Hollywood anymore. Like everybody's tainted.
Yeah, it really, don't dig into that. That's definitely true. No, but it's great because my detail and the fact that you don't watch trailers is good because I've bitched numerous times in this podcast, numerous episodes that trailers fuck up movies.
Oh, dude, like when you bitched about the Hulk being in the Infinity War like running thing and, you know, he's not there. It's just the Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
Like anytime I see that picture now when someone retweets something or posts something, I'm like, I always go, it's not even in that fucking scene now. Like,
that's a lie. It's all a lie.
You tainted me.
Yeah, trailers are the worst. I wish, truth be told, I'm glad we're not doing new release movies right now because I don't have to be mad at trailers. We can do old stuff that's awesome. Like there's the fact that we were doing new movies every week that are in theaters, that's shitting on 99% of the movies that are out there that we could be watching and reviewing that deserve our time as opposed to some of the shit shows that we've watched over the past 6 months.
Well, yeah.
We've watched some stinkers.
Yeah, I mean,
because we started out with Game of Thrones, and then it was like right to American Horror Story, and then right to Star Trek Discovery, and then we were like, oh shit, everything's off. Let's just do movies in theaters because Movie Pass is out. And then we were picking movies that looked like they were the big one for the week, and they sucked balls. Like hard.
Yeah, they were pretty bad. I mean, I don't know. We kind of did it to ourselves, though, right?
True. I mean,
like we decided to say review. Now, granted, we didn't talk about what we'd be reviewing, but you know, we picked movies, and I don't know if it was one of those things like you and I were just gung ho to go to the movies because Movie Pass happened to come out, and it was like, hey man, this is a fucking cool idea. We'll review new movies, or if secretly we were like, we should probably review new movies because people will want to listen to about new things. you know what I'm saying? Like now we're just like, dude, we can talk for 2.5 hours about anything. So
exactly,
just pick a topic.
Pick a topic.
Let's get in on.
Let's make it relevant. So we'll do a 5-week series on horror movies. I'm so stoked about it. I keep watching them closer and closer to nighttime though, and it's starting to get me.
It's starting to get to you.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't watch it. I know I can't watch it on my wife. She's like, nope. I was like, I need to watch Evil Dead. She's like, you don't? No, you fucking don't. Not in this room. Not at night. I'm going to bed. I'm not going to bed to that noise.
Dude, I still love getting scared from a movie, and then, I mean, because you know how long the hallway is down my house from the kitchen. Like,
fuck that hallway.
And I have a hallway light on at the end. But of course, it only makes the very end of the hallway look even more terrifying. you know, but like I love walking through the kitchen still after kind of watching something spooky and looking down that hallway and feeling slightly uncomfortable, even though the only two things down there are my children's bedroom and a bathroom, right? Like, but it's like
scary.
No, that hallway just got a little bit longer. I feel like I might be hanging out in the living room a little while longer now.
It's like a push zoom, right? Where the hallway just stretches. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, I'm like, no. Why is my bedroom all the way at the end?
Right? Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I'm of the generation that flipped the light switch to your bedroom and made sure you got in the bed before the complete light bulb went out, so you were in your bed safe, so the monsters couldn't get you. And I'm also of the generation that you don't sleep with your feet outside the covers. Because your feet are in the covers, you're good. Your feet are hanging over the edge of and you definitely don't hang shit over the edge of the bed. Like, it's bad enough your feet aren't in the covers, but your feet aren't in the covers and they're hanging over the edge of the bed. You're asking to be dragged under your fucking bed.
See, I talk to the monsters under my bed. Like, no shit, dude. Like, because I sleep with my feet off the bed, but I'm like, all right, guys, you know the rule. Like, as long as it's as long as the covers are over, you can't mess with it. And then there'll be nights where I'm like fucking stupid hot, and so like I got like limbs just like hanging off the bed that are like damn near the ground, and I'm like, all right, guys. We both know it's way too hot to be fucking around tonight, so we're just gonna call a truce. And like I'll like coach myself to go to sleep out from under the covers, man. I do weird shit like that. Like I still, if I'm at the bottom of the stairs and I flick the light off, it's a full sprint up the stairs no matter what.
And you don't look back.
Oh yeah, dude. If you like,
no.
and even if I come through the doorway, I still, because the rules I have with my ghost in the house are, if I turn and grab and go to close the door, you have free reign to be on the other side of like the door frame, not behind the door, but like as the area of the stairs I just ran through, and scare the shit out of me. But if I just stayed looking forward and shut the door, like, oops, you missed your chance.
Didn't get to scare me, fucker.
I didn't turn around, so nothing's there now. Shut the door. Yeah, those are the weird rules I got that run around my house.
Right, and then in our so you're 34, I'm 38. Okay, so what's hilarious is that I like how you mentioned like the super hot stuff, because if you're listening to this podcast and you're in your early 20s, you're about to buy your first house, and you're feeling like a man or a woman, you're like, yeah, it's my house. Like, I'm going to have it at my fucking temperature that I want my house at. Like, that's going to last, like, 2 billing cycles. When you realize that, like, oh, that wasn't a fluke. That's what it's going to cost for me to have the house at, quote-unquote, my temperature. So, at some point, you're like, I'll just put on a hoodie or I'll just take something off and then be hot at night and turn a fan on. So, yes, at some point, like when I was a kid, like you didn't sleep with your feet outside the covers. Now that I'm an adult and pay my electric and heating and cooling bill, I'm like, okay, look, feet can be outside the covers, but we're not dangling feet off the bed. Hands, yeah, because I sleep near the edge of the bed, so my hand's going to be over the edge, but that's okay. But feet, definitely not hanging off the bed, because if my feet's not hanging on the bed, that's getting snatched or off. It's getting bit off or snatched, and it's dragging me under the bed. It's happening. So there's a point where like my childhood fears, and I don't care. Being scared is that's what keeps humans alive. So even my adult fears, like I didn't even know I had a fear of lights being turned on and off till like what we mentioned last week. That one short came out where like the guy only appeared and moved when the lights were off. So like now when you're like, I don't look down the stairs or I don't look down the hall when I've entered that room. Fuck that shit. I need to see if that dude's there, so I need to leave the light on. You know what I'm saying? Like until that short came out, it was like, no, if you don't look, it's not happening. You didn't get me. But now that I know that happens, now I got to know, like I got to look down and be like, flick, flick. Okay, we're good. And then leave. Like just adding layers upon layers of this of the fear.
See, I figure I have like a mutual relationship with the ghost in my house. Like I've walked around my house and have spoken out loud into numerous links of like, okay, guys, like if you're here and we're gonna try to work this out, like I need you to appear like right now. I'm ready. Like, do it now. Like, because if I turn around and you fucking appear, like, I am going to have a heart attack. Like, you need
I'm literally going to pee, and
like
I do not want to mop that shit up.
I am not prepared to be scared in any other way than the moment I have accepted right now. And it hasn't happened yet. And each time I go, I'm going to fucking turn around, man. And one of them's going to be like, hey, man, sorry, I'm here a little late. And I'm like, I'm fucking dead.
You fucking know the rules. Why would you do that? I fucking said it out loud. Okay, so now I'm going to ask a question that I'm sure I have to ask this question. Okay. Have you ever seen a ghost? Have you ever had a paranormal experience in your lifetime? Like a legit, like I can tell you a story where something has happened that I cannot explain.
I think I've seen a werewolf, man. Like, no shit.
Okay, that was not where I was going with that, but I'll take it. Go with it.
Okay, so when I lived out in Wyoming, and I was actually telling my son about this place the other day because he was talking about how there's like an abandoned house in the woods and, you know, it's got like graffiti and shit all over it.
Oh, that narrows it down.
Right? But like everybody growing up, right? There's always been that house. Like, don't fuck with those people house. Or like there's always been that just weird house in everybody's neighborhood. Well, where my neighborhood stopped at in Wyoming, there was like a bunch of farmland in between it and like the next main road. So you had this really nice like neighborhood that just butted up to this farmland, and there was this old farmhouse that was out there. And I don't mean like country farmhouse. I just mean like someone built a house out here on this section of the farm for when they were out here doing their plots and pastures and moving the cattle and shit for days. They're like, I need a fucking house out here. So they built a house, like this little single story ranch house out there, but it was known as the Devil's House. Of course, you know, me and my buddies are all like, well, we got to go check this out. So we sneak onto the property. Like, all you got to do is hop a little barbed wire fence from my house, and we walk out there. We get out there. There's like nothing to it. Couple broken windows, bottles. You could tell people partied out there. There's a couple pentagrams and shit, you know, hail Satan, whatever. Your normal stuff.
Fucking bullshit 90s teenagers.
Right? So I was like, okay, this is basically like an MTV house at this point. No big deal. So from where I lived, I have to describe this because you would go down a main street that had like actual big like overhead lights. So the whole street was lit up, and it just dead ended at like a do not cross barricade. And the back of my house was at the end of that do not cross barricade for the main drag. So you could either go left or right at the end of that point, and it bumped up to the farm. But if you stood on that drag and you looked over the do not cross barricade into the farmland, the moon would come up perfectly over the hill. Like, it was just awesome. Like, you could just see it, and it would light the whole farmland up, and even like almost get brighter than the street lights.
It's like the farmland was purchased there specifically for the fact that the moon came up right there.
Right? Yeah, dude, it was just weird. And so I remember looking out at the horizon, and I'm watching the moon, and like it's just a big bright moon, and you can see all the trees, and it just looks super cool. And then along the horizon, there's this large thing running on its hinds, kind of like a human, but oddly wrong. But it's moving. Like, it's
how far is this horizon from you? This hill?
Probably,
like, we talking a football field? We talking like 3 football fields?
Probably like maybe like 2 football fields, like at the point where like you could make out if it was
on 2 or on 4 legs.
Yeah, like a big bear or something like that. If you saw a horse, you'd be like, that's a horse. Now, you wouldn't see the details of the horse, but as bright and outlined as everything was, you could tell that that's most likely a horse walking where it was. Mm-hmm. But this thing was on its hinds, hauling ass, and midway through, as it's running across my horizon line, it just kind of falls forward and takes off on all 4s. Like, it was second nature, and just keeps going. And disappeared off into the woods and everything. But to this day, dude, I swear it was a werewolf.
Well, I'm trying to think.
It's the only thing
what the fuck it could be. Yeah, I mean, shit, that's a great story.
Because it was huge. It wasn't like it was something small that just was like, it wasn't, because jackrabbits out there in Wyoming can be massive. Like they can stand on their hinds and look inside your car. But at the distance it was, the thing had to be the size. I mean, it had to be 6 feet or bigger easily.
Right.
Because something 6 foot would have looked small out there. And this thing was clearly a biped at some point during this movement.
To a quadruped.
Yeah. It was crazy, dude. Like,
that's nice.
So
well, the best part was, because I was afraid your story, I was afraid that your story was going to go, as it was running across the horizon, halfway across the horizon, it suddenly turned and came towards, like came in my direction. And at that part, I wigged out and ran to my house. But luckily, your story didn't go there. But and the hairs on my legs didn't rise up any higher than they already were.
Oh God, dude, I couldn't imagine if I just saw that and like
it saw you seeing it.
Yeah, because as fast as it was moving, that thing, like if it was just like running from that far and I don't know, had like eagle eyes and was like, oh, hey, there's a snack. Look at the 14-year-old or 13, 14-year-old kid, you know, like as fast as that thing was moving, dude, it would have been on me and probably before I could have made it to my house that was 8 feet away.
Nice. Okay, so you want to hear mine? I actually have one, which is amazing. So in this town that I live in now, when I was here in high school, so probably it had to be the first few years in high school. It's nighttime, I'm asleep, and so the way that my house was set up in the upstairs, it was an L, like that, like the upstairs was an L. So you had my parents' room at one end of the L, my room was in the intersection of the L, and my sister's room was in the other end of the L. Okay, so I woke up one night, and there's, you know how you can kind of see? I noticed a figure passing, because number one, as a scared kid, I don't sleep with my room door closed because then you just trap all the monsters in there with you. So you never shut my room door. My room door was always open. So I had a friggin' egress out in case there was monsters. So my room door's open.
Oh, see, I run on the exact like opposite logic. I'm like, this is my home base.
No, my room is never safe.
like I can shut the door because if I leave the door open, it's like, oh, what was the serial killer that just would like randomly go to people's doors, and if they were unlocked, he was like, oh, they don't mind if I come in.
I have no clue, but please don't tell me about that shit. Because I forget that shit sometimes.
That story is one of those in my adolescent years of being wrapped up in horror movies and serial killers and all that I went, I will forever lock the doors on my house now.
Yeah, right. And any morning I wake up and I realize that I like didn't lock a door, and it happens rarely, but I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't get fucking murdered tonight. It's like, that's like, holy shit, like my door was unlocked. Yeah. And not to mention that when I was a teenager here in my town, and so this will give it away if you look it up, but I lived in a town that like Lorena Bobbitt lived in after the incident. So like when she moved away from wherever she chopped her husband's dick off at, she moved to our area, this town. Did you know that, by the way, in like the mid-90s?
No.
That was the urban legend around the area, and I'm pretty sure I confirmed it at some point in my younger adult years. But anyways, back to my ghost story. So I wake up middle of the night, and there's some small, like either like some sort of light in the hallway, like a night light or whatever, and I see a shadow passing from my sister's room location towards my parents' room. And my sister was in elementary school still, so it was like, you know, she was of the age where you could wake up and go, oh, I'm going to mom and dad's room because I'm like, I woke up and had a nightmare or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I saw that, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? Like, don't go bother mom and dad. Like you can come in here if you're like, they come in my room if there's a problem. Like, you know, don't go bug mom and dad. They gotta get up for work or whatever. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. And like no one, like she didn't like come and go, oh, I had a nightmare. Nothing happened. And I was like, okay. So, I mean, so like my half awake, you know, 8th grade body was like, go back to fucking sleep, bro. Cause you gotta, you know, you're fucking tired and you sleep 17 hours a day. So I went back to sleep, and the next morning, got up for breakfast for school and shit. And I was like, hey, sis, why did you go into mom and dad's room last night? And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, I was in my room all night. I was like,
well,
okay.
Well, I'm sleeping with my fucking door shut from now on.
Guess I got to burn the fucking house down now. So I was like, fuck this, man. So that was the one thing that I ever had. And this is leaving out like the fact that my current house that I'm sitting in right now, like the room we have designated as the nursery. So I have 3 kids and my wife and I have designated like this room is the nursery. So when kid number 1 got too big for that room and they were out of the crib room stayed and that kid moved into their designated room for the rest of their childhood. You know what I'm saying? So my oldest is in her room, my son is now in his room, and my youngest is in the crib in the nursery, which will become her room at the end. This is not even bringing up the fact that all of my children have talked or pointed or looked at the same corner of the room for 8 fucking years. Like, something is there. Like, I've seen it happen numerous times. My wife has seen it way more. In fact, I choose not to see it because I don't want to burn this house down.
Yeah, right, dude.
But I'm like, nope, there's something in this house and it hasn't harmed anybody yet. And it doesn't like manifest itself. But my kids can all see it at a certain age and they sit up and they want to talk to it. And I'm like, okay, we're good with that as long as I don't fucking see it.
Yeah, right, dude. My daughter fucking dropped a bombshell on my dad, like
for his house
a week
Please
ago.
let it be his house.
Okay, yeah, well, okay, so my daughter thinks witches and magic and all that shit's real. Like, you just gotta be in touch with it. And like,
by the way, we may not get back to Evil Dead 2.
No, we might not.
I just want you guys to know that.
Sorry,
we may
guys,
not get there.
We're going
I know we're like an hour and a half into this, maybe an hour 15 or 2 hour or yeah, like an hour 45. We may not. I may just scroll through the rest of the plot at the very end. So we're gonna go with ghost stories. So please continue, sir.
All right. So my ex-wife and I, like, we never stopped her, right? Like, we never were like
stopped her from what?
Like from believing. You know, just in the supernatural, like, right? Like, we weren't one of some of those parents that were just like, that's dumb, you know, like, why would you think that or whatever? So
wait, do you know why you do that? Because those parents' movies get killed first. So never tell your kids they're not real because you're the first ones to fucking die.
You're the example. Yeah.
We'll show you we're fucking real when I drag you across the ceiling and then eat you in a fucking bed of blood, motherfucker.
Yeah. So my mother-in-law is, for lack of a better word, a practicing witch. Mm-hmm. Like, she's very into her
Wiccan.
Wiccan. Not Wiccan. No,
not Wiccan.
She's into her like
the real witch shit.
Like the goddess and this few other things and stuff like that. Like, but she'll do like little spells and stuff like that she thinks will help people in her family and everything. And so she will smell like cigar, a very distinct cigar smell.
The mother-in-law or your daughter?
No, my mother-in-law, right?
Okay.
So she's told these stories from the moment I met her about how she could smell like her grandfather's cigar. Mm-hmm. She's like, he only smoked one kind of tobacco, this, it's too similar for me not to know it's him. And she's like, it'll fill the whole room up. And I just felt like he was there, right? So all of a sudden, my daughter one time smells the cigar. Well, then she smells it first, and I can't remember what she was calling him at the time, but then my mother-in-law smelled it, and she's like, oh, so-and-so's here. So that's kind of how we've always done things with my daughter, right? We're like, okay, well, maybe you are a little more in tune. So my dad's dad, my grandfather, we called him Pa James. Mm-hmm. That was his name. Called him Pa. And my daughter has never met him. Man died many, many years before. I've maybe spoke to him once or twice in passing about a stuffed teddy bear I have that I say, hey, I got from my Pa James, blah, blah, blah. But she was with my dad, and my dad started talking about Pa James, and my daughter was like, yeah, I know Pa. I see him here at the house.
At your house?
And Yeah.
At your house.
And my dad. Yeah. My house and my dad's house.
Okay.
She's like, I see him at the house. She's like, I know Pa. Like, started telling my dad that he wore overalls. Like, he always, like, I remember him always in overalls. And I mean, it was describing things about him that, like, my dad was like, there's just no fucking way she would know those.
Because
like,
you haven't talked about it like that.
Yeah. In that detail. But she was like, yeah, I know he's your Pa. He's told me. Like, and my daughter here in our house has a picture of my father-in-law's mom and Gran, and she's like, oh, I'll come into her room sometimes. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, just talking with Gran, hanging out. And we're like, okay. And I just shut the door and I go back about my business. I'm like, I can't explain it. But yeah, dude, like that, she hit my dad with that one the other day, and I was like, oh shit, man. Like, okay, this is starting to get a little more realistic.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that stuff. My oldest, who's 7, she's special needs, so she doesn't talk. So when my son is 5, and if he ever drops that, so I haven't had the pleasure of that kind of stuff yet, where it's people that he's never met before. He's been like, oh, he hasn't said any of that stuff. But when he does, be sure that I will be like, I'm going to go somewhere else now. Like, I got to go away.
Yeah. Like, I got phantoms real bad in this house.
So what's your difference between phantoms and ghosts?
All right. Well, to me, like, a ghost is like, if I saw like a lamp moving and floating, I would probably be like, I got a ghost fucking with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't say I have a poltergeist at that point. I don't think I would go there. I would probably equate it to more of a comical ghost. But like a phantom, like I'm talking like you're watching your TV. Like, let's say in your house, right?
No, let's not. No. Go ahead, dude. Go ahead, Corey.
All right, we'll use
talk about the things that could happen that may already happen in my house that I'm not attributing to anything but the way the house is built. But no. Go ahead. I have a hard enough time sleeping as it is. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so
fucking hate you.
Okay, you're in my house, and we have my couch faces directly at the TV. It's like probably 8.5 feet away, but right next to the TV is that big double frame door that you can cut through to the kitchen where there's the little dining room area, right?
Right.
Well, what I consider a phantom, and I'm probably using it not as in like the supernatural terminology, but as like in a phantom, something that's like hard to see, right? But you'll be watching my TV, and on a pretty regular basis, there'll be movement that you can't quite explain out of the left corner of your eye. Like, it would look like a child
in that doorway.
Yeah, like a child just ran through, and it's always kind of like a blackish line, and it's like, well, Brody just didn't run through because there's no footsteps or anything with it. Well, like that happens like quite a bit here in this house. And the house I lived in Old Town Fredericksburg, I am 100% certain that house was fucking haunted. Because that had an old like mud basement that they just came in and like painted the walls with like concrete and put down that shit down there, and they had like an open back stairwell for one, so that was always a sprinter staircase no matter what. Light on, light off, didn't matter. Like, there was points in time because the washing machine and shit was down there, and if it was like, and they had the little basement windows, but obviously if it was dark there was not enough light going down there, and there was like pool lights and shit. But there'd be times where like I'd have dirty clothes and I'd look outside and it would be like dusk, and I would just throw the laundry down the fucking stairs. I'd be like, it's too dark. We're getting too close to the fucking witching hour, man. Like, I'm not fucking with this basement.
Like the basement from Home Alone, right?
Yeah. But in that house, they basically finished off the attic and put a stairwell through the back room up to it. But you could be sitting down in the living room and the ceiling would start creaking. And I don't mean like the ceiling would start creaking because the train that was down there just kind of shook all the houses in the area and there was like a creak. No, it's
the footstep creaking.
It was rhythmic pacing back and forth.
Yep. Would not be living there either.
Yeah, and I remember when I rented that spot, I told Mouse about it, and she didn't believe me. And we were sitting there watching TV one night, and the fucking ceiling started doing that. I was like, I told you, someone's walking up there. There's no reason sound should be coming from that part of the house right now.
Why do we get this conversation?
But that's like, I mean, but like, that's one of the big things about Old Town Fredericksburg, because of all the Civil War stuff. Like, everything down there is haunted.
Right. If anybody who listens to the podcast doesn't know, we live in the DC area, but down in the Fredericksburg, Stafford area. That's as close as I'm getting you to my house. But still, Fredericksburg is very, very old. You can drive from our houses, you can drive 20 minutes and be at almost about every battleground ever in the area. So there's not a lot of Civil War shit and everything that happened in this area.
Yeah. Well, dude, I went on the haunted trolley tour down there.
Yeah, you did.
And
I didn't.
It was good. Like, it was a sweet little tour, man. Like, they take you around the area, but they stop at this one house, right? And it's like right off of Princess Anne. Mm-hmm. And apparently it was, kind of some well-to-do family, but they had a nanny and she hated kids.
That seems like you're in the wrong job line.
Yeah. So of course there's like the whole tale of like how she hated the kids and tortured the kids and was just generally mean to the children. Well, apparently she haunts this place. Mm-hmm. So there's been like reports of like people have like done the walkthrough through the house, and like kids will go through and all of a sudden they just trip, like blatantly, like forcefully pushed and weird shit. Well, apparently they kept this nanny for like ever. So she was old by the time she died. So apparently she haunts his house. Well, the story is that at the end of her days, she was all the way upstairs. And I think she fell down the stairs and died.
Fucking good.
So, but the thing is she was all the way upstairs, and a delivery man came to deliver goods one day and like knocked on the door. And apparently what he describes is from where he knocked, you could see like the L turn of a stairwell. So there was like maybe 5 stairs coming down to the last floor before it hooked a right, I think, and goes up to another flight. Was an elderly woman in a gown with unruly hair was slinking down the stairs as if she was a snake, with her hand on the rail, and slithered, kind of crawled, because apparently she broke her legs when she died, to the door. And instead of, I guess, as someone would probably do if they were paralyzed from the waist down without being able to use their legs, pulled the door handle with one hand and somehow like just slid up the door with like their spine curving the wrong way, so their chest came up the door frame. And like the delivery man said that like her head and up to her nose came up above the window and then just disappeared. Was fucking gone.
Yep. I would find a new job. I would never deliver that house again.
Yeah, dude, that was like that was one of the stories they were telling us, that like that was probably the one where I was like, and this house is still actively being sold? Like, people are still like coming in here buying this thing going, nah, it'll work for me. But
stop buying this house.
Yeah, but apparently everybody that, like, I think there's a family that lives in it now. But apparently every family that moved in and then brought children, or like even elderly children, like came to be seen, all eventually ended up moving out because of just shit that went on.
Yep. Fuck old ladies who hate kids. Who are nannies of all things. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna be a nanny. You know what I do? I hate kids. Like, that's stupid.
Yep.
Fuck. This is not where this podcast is supposed to go. God damn it. Because now I'm not gonna fucking sleep tonight.
Oh man, these aren't even bad ones.
I know they're not, which we're not gonna tell anymore. I can't do it.
We're too
look, I know I hit record before this podcast officially started, but we need to wrap this up in a few minutes. So let's roll through the rest of the movie real fast, just hitting on a few points. and then we'll wrap it up. If there's anything else we want to tell story-wise, we can. So, because we haven't even gotten to the part after the whole, like, him smashing himself in the head with the pot, with the
Well, then you get so he bashes himself.
This is where we get to him cutting his hand off, like the iconic.
And then so he's smashing himself. You see, like, he's knocked out. The hand,
I love it, dragging him.
Being sentient, realizes that Ash is knocked out, starts pulling him across the floor over to the knife that I don't know, I guess hand sees, senses, whatever.
That part where he's unconscious and the hand is dragging him is my favorite scene of the entire movie, because it's done so well.
It is.
It's not even funny, but it is, and it's not even horror, but it is. Like, it's just the fact of your possessed hand dragging you across the floor, and it only moved as far as his fingers could, so that the couple 3 inches that your fingers can drag you is all he moved, and it was magic. This scene is magic. Yeah, dude, it really is a great scene, especially when you think of how simple it is, but how hard it would have to be to make that look real. Right. Whoever's pushing his feet, or how he's, like, having to get his toes up under himself. Like, even the parts where Ash is arguing with his hand before he takes it off. Like, I don't know how he made his hand seem so independent from his thought process. Yep. Right? Like, I don't know how else to describe that, but his hand, like, I could grab my wrist and pretend that my hand is unruly, like it's not but it's the claw. Yeah, right. Yeah, I could do that. I could do that. But when you actually watch the movie, like, it genuinely looks like that is a foreign appendage at this point in time. Like, it's crazy how well that's done. It is. He is, I wouldn't say one of a kind, but he is where everybody else, like Jim Carrey, like other comedic style slapstick actors, have pulled any of their material from. He's the originator of it back in, like, 82. You know what I'm saying? Because you can take that scene in the kitchen and with his hand up until when he cuts it off, you can take that and you can pull every slapstick possessed hand movie, any sort of, like, joke about that. It's all pulled from there. I'll guarantee you it is. Oh yeah, no, hands down, definitely. So yeah, so he cuts his hand off. There's a whole, like, standoff where he's shooting at it with a shotgun, and it's running across the floor and going in the rat holes in the house. By the way, largest rat holes in a house you've ever fucking seen. But the hand, you could have fit, like, a loaf of bread through those holes. Yeah, sideways, and it would have easily went through. Like, the rat that was coming through that hole, you were a guest in his house. Yeah, he should be paying taxes. He's so big. Yeah. So, I'm not even sure if that joke actually landed. I don't even care. It's too late. It's already been 2 hours. I'm fine. Yeah, I popped the 5 hour, like, later in the day because I knew we were going to get started later, so I wanted to make sure I was kicking on. Now I'm at the point where I would probably regretting that choice because I'll probably be awake till like 2 a.m. now. There you go. Yeah, I will not be, because my kids get up at 6 whether or not I want them to or not. Dude, like, I love your children, but they are demon spawn for that. 6 a.m. dude. God, my clockwork, man. My son comes in the room sometimes and he's like, wow, 6 and 2 zeros took so long to get here. I'm like, how fucking long have you laid awake and watched your clock? Like, geez almighty, man. Like, just go back to sleep. He doesn't do it, though. It's crazy. My oldest, I wake up by, like, noon. And I hear that and lazy ass. And my daughter, man, like, she'll sleep till 11. Easy. I know one day I'll wish my kids got up early, but right now I'm like, will you just sleep until 7? I mean, just sleep until 7. Even when she was smaller, dude, like, we were lucky. Like, she always went to bed at 7 and always slept till basically 9 a.m. And even when she was eating in the middle of the night, she woke up once. I was like, this is fucking awesome. Best stuff ever. Yeah, dude. Right. I was like, if all kids were this easy. Even my oldest was solid, man. Like, he didn't wake up through the middle of the night either. Like, the only thing he woke up for was, like, to come sleep with you. That was it.
And then he would just hop up in bed and like shove his finger in your mouth because he was weird like that. And then you just go to bed.
Creeper.
Man, that's crazy.
What's that?
I just had a little flashback about that. Like it was the way he used to sleep on me.
That's funny. Parent.
Especially now that I'm looking at him as he's playing Far Cry 5 and he's probably an inch taller than me and 40 pounds heavier than me. You know, it's just like, oh man, that giant thing over there used to fit in my arms.
Yep, long time ago. That's funny. All right, back to the movie. So, hands off. He traps the hand under a pail for a few minutes, even with some books on top of it, to include the book.
Farewell to Arms.
A Farewell to Arms, which you didn't even know was a real book. You thought it was
so
just a joke.
This is how naive I was when I first watched this movie. I watched that scene and laughed my ass off, thinking that someone writing the film was just thought of Farewell to Arms as a book cover and was like, dude, this is hilarious. And I was in that bandwagon of, yeah, that is hilarious.
Right. Not knowing it's a real literary classic.
Not knowing the historical significance of the actual book itself.
It's okay. No one's actually ever read that book. Not for real. Kind of like Red Badge of Courage.
You know,
no one's read that.
There's like books that I honestly think I've read, but I don't know if I've just seen the movie adaptation of it or it was something that was assigned to me in school and I just cheated, you know, and I was supposed to read it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think we read that in school.
Right. Right. And so all the time that he's doing this stuff with his hand, you have the professor's daughter and her boyfriend or whatever he is. And then the two people they meet at the bridge that's broken down heading to the house because they've convinced them to, like, for $100 he'll carry her bags, and the redneck guy and his girlfriend and then the professor's daughter. So the four of them are heading to the house all while this is happening to Ash, and he's going further and further into whatever mania he's dealing with, to the point where when they knock on the door and he's been through all this, the deer head laughing at him and the whole house like laughing and him like losing his mind and like laughing at the house as it's like everything is laughing, the lamp is moving, the deer head is moving, all that shit's happening. And then he hears a knock at the door and someone's trying to like get in the door and he just shoots through the door and then goes out looking for people. And then like the redneck guy tackles him and they're all trying to figure out what's going on. And they're thinking at first they think he's like the mass murderer because there's like a bloody chainsaw and she can't find her parents, who are the professor and the old lady. So they trap him in the base. They throw him, after all this, they throw him down into the cellar. They're like, we're going to trap you down there. Then they find out from like, I don't know if it's like the ghost apparition of her dad that tells him, yeah, it is. When it's just them, like they've thrown him in the basement and it's the four of them who've arrived and the ghost appears of her father. And he's like, I buried your mother in the cellar. And Ash is down there, and that's when Ted Raimi appears out of the floor, and they go, Ash is trying to get away, and he gets up the stairs, and then you see like the redneck guy like grab him by the head right as like the grandma like gets to him and pull him up and out of the cellar. So that's a whole lot of what happens in the next few scenes. But yeah, Ted Raimi as the old lady is like the greatest thing in this entire movie as well. Mostly for like his T-Rex arms that he does.
Yeah. When he's walking is the best.
It's best because when I watched your version of Evil Dead, when we watched it at your house, they had tried to put in all the missing scenes to the point where they were putting in video of behind the scenes footage.
Camera B footage just for like, hey, capture this and so we can,
just for posterity's sake.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I'm not even sure what that
like test footage
camera was going for.
Yeah. Well, some of it was test footage, like the shot, like when the boyfriend of the professor's daughter gets possessed with the big mouth and like Ash hacks half his head off. Like that was all test footage they had in your version of the movie. But when I watched it today, this morning, like that wasn't in there. So you see it in the shadow of him like hacking half his head off, but then you don't see it anymore. So you don't see like the face laying on the ground and like the eyebrow moving, like the half a face. Like You don't see any of that. So everything in your movie is all like test footage that they put in there anyways, because it's like, why didn't you put this in? Because this would have been so cool if you showed this. But they were trying to cut all this stuff out to like save their R rating or save their X rating or whatever. So that's why they also, if anybody didn't know, it's why they used not just red blood, but like black and white and green and all kinds of different color fluids. So they would hopefully get around an X rating. They would be like, it's not blood, it's just zombie goo or whatever, demon goo, it's demon, green stuff. So that's why you see all these different colors. Like when the house, earlier on, before everybody gets there, the house like sprays blood at him and then it turns from like red to black to white, in some of the versions of the movie. So it's just, that's why they use all these different colors to try to like be like, it's not all blood. We're okay. Please don't give us anything other than R.
Yeah. It's just colored fluid.
Yeah. So after they figure out that Ash is not the person who killed the grandparents, and they like, even to the point where like when the dad appears, Bobby Joe, who is the redneck's girlfriend, she's like, you're holding my hand too tight. And he's like, but I ain't holding your hand. And she looks down and it's like Ash's cut off hand holding her hand. And they all realize like something's fucking way wrong. So she runs off in the woods and gets killed. The girlfriend does. The boyfriend of the professor's daughter, he turns into that monster and gets hacked up by Ash. And then it's just literally Ash and the redneck guy and the professor's daughter left. And then he gets dragged into the basement into the cellar by Grandma, and it turns into a giant spewing blood mess. And then it's just the two of them. And then at some point, Ash gets possessed and starts going after her. And that's where like he's outside, like that's where you talked about earlier, where like you have him possessed, but he's not like all the way there because still like the campy Ash is underneath. So, when the zombie's like screaming for Annie, he has that whole like Annie like screaming at her and like stretching his neck out like Bruce Campbell always does. So it's so classic. It's great.
Yeah, because every time and I know this is probably just the way the prosthetics worked out on Ash when he's a Deadite in Evil Dead 2. Mm-hmm. But like I was saying, like the way he walks, and I don't know if this was really like him thinking this the way I am, but like I said, because he's the chosen one, like it always looks like when he's possessed that there's like confusion within the Deadite, right? Like it's still fighting Ash at the same time while it's trying to figure out like why it can't fully control its body, or because I can't imagine every Deadite that has tried to possess Ash is just stupid, because every other Deadite seems quite fluent in what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and completely the other soul is completely gone, but Ash's is never all. It's always an internal conflict between the Deadite and Ash's soul. And Ash is one of the only ones we ever see come back from being possessed. In fact, in this one, while he's going after Annie, the necklace from Linda is on the ground it's in the shape of the skull, like you answered correctly in your quiz earlier. And that's what pulls Ash back and kicks the demon out, is the necklace. That's what unpossesses him. Then you had this campy thing of like him trying to tell her he's okay and her still like going after him with the axe. Like, that's great. Because when you think it's done, she swings it again at him one more time just for the fucking hell of it. And he's like, I fucking told you I'm fine. So it's great. And so then at the end, they are...
Isn't this where Ash goes to the basement?
Well, this is the part where he has to go to the basement to find...
He's got to go retrieve
the rest of the pages. Right, so he goes to the basement and he fights off Henrietta. Gets the pages, gets him back to her, and then she comes up out of the basement, and then the big giant ending boss fight happens where you don't actually you have Henrietta, where then after she starts, then her neck elongates and they're still fighting, and then Annie ends up singing the lullaby that her mother used to sing her, which distracts that Deadite long enough because of the soul deep inside has that memory. enough time for Ash to what? Does he hack the head off and then the head's laying on the ground saying, I'll eat your soul, and he's like, eat this, and he blows its head off. He steps on the head and blows it off.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so, and then at that point, she still needs to read all the passages, and then you have the big giant head that comes in through the door, and then the hand that comes in through the window and grabs Ash, and he's like chainsawing the head because he's already, we didn't really go through the whole like Rambo setup of him getting the chainsaw hand going, but it's already there, the whole grooving.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know, he hasn't modified the chainsaw by now. Why are you listening to this podcast? Like, you know damn well that's what he's done.
So he's hacking at he's driving the chainsaw into the big giant monster's eye. This is when I think the whole house is still like all the trees are banging against the house as well. Like all this happens, like the big head and the hands happen after the trees and then forest starts smashing into the house. And at the very end, like the disembodied hand of Ash like stabs Annie in the back with the Kandarian dagger as she's reading all the passages. She gets the last words out, but I guess what she was reading wasn't the close the portal one. It was the open the time portal one. And so he gets sucked into it along with the Oldsmobile and like one tree. And so that's when he gets sucked into like 1300 England or whatever.
Yeah, he basically goes back to like knights in shining armor.
Yeah, and he lands there and they think he's a deadite and he's like, what are you talking about? Then there's one like flying in and he stands up, pulls out a shotgun and blows its head off as it's flying in. And then you get Sam Raimi as one of the knights who's like, he's the chosen one. He's come to protect us or save us from the deadites. Hip hip hooray or whatever he says. And everybody's like cheering for him and Ash is like, no, like he knows it's like from the book when he saw himself earlier. He knows that's him they're talking about. Yeah. And like you have this, and then that's how the movie ends. And it's just so good. You can't even like you don't question a single thing you've seen on screen. It's great. The world that Sam Raimi built with these movies, you don't have to question it. You just love it.
Yeah, and even when like the absurd, like snakehead thing, because like let's face it, man, like Henrietta's face when it's not Ted is just almost like goofy claymation to a point.
Stop motion, baby, and and practical effects, man.
Yeah,
puppets.
But like even during that part where it is kind of comical, right? Like you don't get pulled out of the movie.
Right, you don't get lost in the comedy. You're not lost chuckling. You're like, oh, this can't be, but fuck that.
Yeah, like there's still a great mix of everything going on,
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. I mean, it's just, you don't get this kind of movie anymore. And just the sheer fact that this exists, everybody should see it. If you're going to see any of the three, watch this movie. This is the one of the three to watch because one's going to be too horror, one's going to be too campy, and this one is right in the middle. It's perfect.
Totally agree. Like this one, like I said at the beginning, I think it's like perfect combination of the two. Like it just got all the pieces right.
Right. Always. What is the phrase? Always mimicked, never copied, or always copied and never whatever that phrase is.
No idea.
But yeah, you can see, and even watching the behind the scenes stuff, anything in Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2, just to know how iconic it is when you're on a set of another movie and when the director is directing a horror movie trying to explain a scene they're trying to set up, and they go, you know what? Just do it like Evil Dead. Like when that's what gets said on scene in movies that are horror movies from the 80s and from the 90s to now, that people are telling stories on set where directors like, just do it like Evil Dead. That's how iconic of an idea and how iconic of a movie all of these are.
Oh, hell yeah. That was very nice.
Just that's the way it is. And so I don't know, any final words, or have we said enough?
I think we said enough. I mean, like we talked about the movie as we tend to do. We got some great side stories and information.
Right.
And then just general rules of thumb to keep in mind when you are, having your rundown with your things that go bump at night and under the stairs and under the covers, you got to shift the rules a little bit. You got to make sure it's something that works for you and your other occupants in the terror zone of your house.
Right. We have all the rules are established. So we want to thank everybody for hanging on this long. We know our podcasts are more of the lengthy ones that are out there and available. And we just want to leave you with a few words, and those would be Condar, Estrada, Condos, Thrus, Indoctu, Nos Frondus, Condar, Dematos, Condar.